Hello, my gorgeous friends on the internet. How you all doing? I hope your day was awesome. So today I'm back with another exciting tutorial, and we'll be looking at authenticating user with Google and Facebook. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to authenticate user using Google first. Then after that, we're going to move over to Facebook. But mind you, Facebook and Google are not the only social authentication available for Firebase. We also have Twitter, we have GitHub, we have LinkedIn, and the rest of them. But in this video, I'm going to focus only on Google authentication and Facebook authentication. So you remember this our app where we did the email and password authentication in the previous video. So I'm still using the same app. So the only thing I changed was to add these two buttons. Okay. So in case of those people coming in now and you didn't watch the previous video, I'm going to put the link in the description below so that you see where how we started and so that you will not get lost along the way. Alright, so without much ado, let's get started. So right here you can see I have the forgot password. Okay, this is actually for this. Okay, so here now this is where the social auth button starts, and I have the untap property for this. And continuing with Google, right now it has an empty untap property, and I also have the continuing with Google, which is the test, and down here I have that for authenticating with Facebook. All right, so this button is not actually looking cool, so you can customize it the way you want depending on how you want your app to look, and just your own test you can just customize it. The basic thing I want to show you just how to make the functions work, how to log in users with Gmail, Google, and Facebook. And so once a user is successfully authenticated, we're going to take them to this home page. So the home page is just going to display it's only going to display the email of the user, because we're going to pass it as a construct. Okay, we're going to get it from Firebase Auth. All right, so that's exactly what we are going to do. So before I start, I'm going to do everything inside this auth provider.dat class. If you could remember the previous video, I created this class, and this was where I did the create account, the sign in account, reset, and sign out. So under here, I'm going to do the one for Google Auth. Okay, Google Auth, and then below here, I'm going to create another function for Facebook Auth. Alright, so but before we start, we need to do some configuration on Firebase console. So head over to your Firebase console, and this is the app we integrated to our Firebase console. Initially we did an email and password, and if I go here, you're going to see my email address, which I use for testing. Alright, so this was the email address. So right now, to set up Google authentication, we are going to go to sign in method. Alright, remember the previous one where we are doing the email and password, we enabled this email and password. So in this case, we are going to enable Google. So I've already enabled this stuff, but if your own is by default, yours should be disabled. So just click on this little icon there and toggle this stuff from off to enabled. Alright, so just make sure it's set to enabled, and then you come down here, just leave these ones the way they are. And so I think we are good, and once you set this stuff on, you can save it. So in this case I cannot save it because it was on already, you can see. So we can just save it once you click that and click on this button save to save it. Alright, so I'm going to go back. Alright, so I've already enabled it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go to my project setting, because Firebase requires the SHA-1 key, which is SHA-1 key. Is very required whenever we are doing anything concerning cloud functions or Google authentication. It is required. Alright, so to add that, I'm going to go to my settings. So this is my project. Go to settings, project settings, and it will take you to this page. So just scroll down to the last, and you should see your app. You can see this is our app, and I will go down to add fingerprints, but currently I don't know how to add a fingerprint. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to click on this little help icon here and click on see this page. So it's going to redirect us to a page, and we are going to take a command So this is actually the command we are going to use to generate the share one key. Okay, so for those with you Windows devices, you select this one, but since I'm using a Linux device, I'm going to use this one. All right, this one is only for debug, but if you want to release your app to production, you're going to use this one for releasing your app to production, and you put your key name, which is the key while signing your application. I have a video on that where I showed you how to sign your application for upload to Play Store. And also this is the part where you stored your key file. So you're going to specify it, and once you hit enter, it's going to generate the SHA-1 key for you, which you can use. Because if you don't do that and you're using Google Authentication, even if you use debug mode, debug key, it's still not going to work once you release your app to Play Store. So you want to make sure you get those stuff done. And also one thing I want you to know, if you eventually upload your app to Play Store, you have let me say you have already integrated Google and Firebase signing, and then you uploaded your app to Play Store, you signed everything correctly. Then on the process of uploading, you allowed Google to manage your key. Once you allow Google to manage your signing key, even if you allow Google to manage your signing key, your Google and Facebook authentication is not going to work again, because now you are not using the same key you used to generate it during production. This time Google is managing. I've signed it with a new key for you. So what you have to do, you go to your console. There is a way you get that done. All right, so if you want me to make a video on that, just put it down, just comment it down in the comment section below, and I'm going to do that. All right, so without wasting much time, we are going to copy this, all right, and go to your project. So this is the project. Go to your terminal. All right, so you want to paste that inside the terminal. All right, just paste it and hit enter. So it's going to ask us for a password, so just type Android as the password, Android lowercase, okay, and it's going to generate this key. So we have the SHA-1 key here, so make sure you copy this. All right, and we're going to go back to our Firebase console. Okay, this is the Firebase console. I can close this because it's not needed anymore. I've already gotten what I want. So click on add fingerprint, and here we're going to paste that key here, and it's going to save it for us. So why is this saving? I'm going to add the second one. So I'm going to go back to my code, okay, and I'm going to copy this. Okay, make sure you copy it properly, and once you do that, we go back to Firebase again and add another fingerprint. So you paste it here. All right, so there's an error, string does not match a recognized certificate. That means I didn't copy it properly, so I will have to copy that again, okay, and save it. So I'll go back again to the code, to the projects, and make sure you remove this one and paste it here. All right, so now this one is the correct one, and we save that. So now we are done. So if you integrate Google sign-in, it's going to work perfectly. All right, so now I can go back to my authentication, and this is where we're going to do the major work, where we're going to see the authentication. All right, so I'm going to go back to my code, and right here I'm going to create a function. So basically this function is going to handle the authentication for us. But before I do that, there are things I need to add first. I need to add a plugin, the Google Auth plugin, because that will help us to do all this stuff. So this is the Google sign-in plugin, and I'm using version 4.5.1. all right, so make sure you add this stuff, Google sign-in 4.1.5, to your prospect.yaml file, and once you do that, you hit pub get, and it's going to download the required dependency. So once that is done, we are going to go back to the Auth provider. So here now I'm going to create a function that will handle the authentication flow for us. All right, so what I'm do first, I'm going to use a feature as a function, and it should have a type of user credential. This is if you want to retrieve the user's data. So I'm going to use user's credentials. All right, so I'll give it a name, so sign in with Google. All right, so make sure you put this. You should know how to create a function. All right, and I'm going to make this asynchronous. Okay, right here now I'm going to create a Google sign-in account variable, so it's going to be a final variable with a type Google. Yeah, I believe I'm typing this correctly. Google sign-in account. Okay, and I'm going to give it Google user, so that's the name. And then I will extend this to await, because remember we use a sync here, so we can use await here. So once I do that, I'm going to get the Google sign in, and then also specify the scope, Google sign in, and we're going to specify the scopes. So in this case, the scope is going to be email, so I'll just make this as a type of string, and pass in your email and dot sign in. Okay, all right, I think that is good. Wow, are we having any error? Okay, so I have to put this. Okay, I think this is not needed. Google scope. Okay, something is wrong somewhere, so I'm going to close this here. All right, so this is good. All right, so now I'm going to format this properly. Okay, all right, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to obtain the auth details from the request. Okay, so this variable I just created here is just to trigger the authentication flow. So right now I'm going to obtain the auth details from the request. Okay, so this is also going to be a final variable with the Google sign-in authentication, I believe. Yeah, Google sign-in authentication, and you create the Google Auth. So I'm going to extend this to be await, still await, because it's an asynchronous function. So we are going to use Google user dot authentication. All right, so you close that. So now the next thing we're going to do now is to create a new credential for the user. So to do that, I'm still going to use a final variable. So we use Google Auth credential. So don't worry if this is confusing now, you're going to understand it later. Just okay, so we are going to use Google Auth provider dot, so it's going to provide the credentials for us. All right, so Google Auth provider dot credentials. All right, so right now I'm going to pass in the access token and also pass in the ID token, and I'm going to get it from the Google Auth. All right, the variable I created, which is this Google user, this Google Auth. All right, so to do that, first thing, if you hover on this now, you can see it has two types which it takes. It takes the ID token and the access token. So I'm going to create the access token. All right, so the access token is going to be the variable Google user, which I created here. So I'll say Google user, Google Auth, sorry, Google Auth dot access token. All right, so the next one is going to be the ID token, and I'm going to use Google Auth still. Okay, Google Auth dot ID token. All right, so now we are done with this part. So let's see, the next one is once the user is signed in, we want to return the user credentials, and to do that we're going to pass everything down to Firebase Auth. So Firebase is going to handle those stuff. So if we want to get the user's data, it's just to call Firebase Auth dot current users dot email dot photo URL, whatever I want to get. So what I'm going to do, I'll just return await. Remember, we are returning the user credential here, so I'll just return await with the Firebase Auth, okay, dot instance dot sign in with credential. Then we're going to pass in this credential we created. So sign in with credential, and here I'm going to pass in the credentials. All right, so that is it, and we are good to go. All right, so now we have created the function for handling Google sign in successfully. All right, so now the next part is to integrate this stuff from our login page, so which is where we have the continue with Google. All right, so inside this function I'm going to handle those stuffs. All right, okay, so once the user is successfully signed in, we want to take them to the home page. Remember I told you about the home page which we created here, and then once we take them to the home page, we are going to display the email of the user. So the email is already gotten from this part, Firebase or instance.currentUser.email. So if I run this code and open this page, is going to show null because currently we have not registered any user, we have not created any user. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'll go to the login page, and here I'll need to get the class where I'm creating this function, and the class is coming from auth class. Then I will get the sign in with Google, and then do whatever I want to do. So to get that now, I'm going to remove this. So just say sign in with Google. Unlike email and password where users have to create accounts first before signing in, Google and Facebook Auth does not require that. You just click on the button to sign in. If the user exists, it's going to create them as an existing user. But if the user does not exist, it's just going to create a new user entirely. All right. So what we're going to do now is to get the auth class. Okay. The auth class, what does it take? Let's see if it takes any context. All right. So it takes nothing. So we have the auth class. From the auth class, we're going to access the sign in with Google. All right, so okay, login, auth class does sign with Google. All right, so once you get that done, we are going to use the then class, the then. Okay, so then it's just going to return whatever value we want to get. Remember, from the auth provider here, we are returning the user credential, which contains everything about the user, so we can basically get those stuffs from there. All right, so now I get the then, and it's a valid user credential, so I'll have to put that user credential. So that's the type. Okay, so don't mistake that. It needs to be imported, so I'll have to import this ASAP. Okay, so now we are going to, the next thing we are going to do, okay, there's an issue here, so remove this to value. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is to, I just want to get the photo URL of the user, or no need for photo URL. Let me just get the display name of the user. So remember I told you with Google Auth you can get the display name of the user. So let's just get the display name, and I believe this should be my name because I'm going to use my email address to test it. It should be Destiny Ed. So let's get the display name, and we're going to get it from the value dot current, right? Okay, value dot user, I believe, dot display name. So you can see so many things you can get. You can get email, phone number. I don't think you can get phone number from using Google sign in, but I believe you can get your user ID, your email, photo URL, display name is verified, and the rest of them. So we're going to get the display name right now. Okay, so I also want to print it out, so just print the display name of the user. Okay, so you can do whatever you want to do with this display name. Okay, so I'm just here to show you how to trigger the authentication flow and then make all the stuff working in your application. So right now you can do, once the user is signed in successfully, we are going to take them to the home page. Okay, so I'm going to use the navigator dot push. Okay, push and remove basically. Yeah, push and remove because I don't want to keep this next page. Okay, and I'm going to use material page app, material page routes. Okay, we require a builder, and I'll pass in the context and then the home page. Okay, which is the page you want to show. Okay, and once you do that, make sure you terminate this one as well. Terminate it here, all right, and also terminate this one here. So what is actually happening here is we are going to get, okay, all right, so once we tap on this continue with Google icon, once we tap on the icon, this, okay, let me open the app first. Once we tap on this continue with Google, okay, shrink this a little. Okay, so once you tap on this continue with Google, it's going to open the authentication flow, and then from there we are going to, once the sign in authentication is successful, we are going to retrieve the IDs, the data, and the display name of the user, and then we are going to print it out, and then we are going to navigate the user to home page. So from the home page there, we are going to show the we are going to show the email of the user. After saying welcome, we are going to display the email of the user, and still using this auth class of sign out, which was the class I created previously. If you go to my auth.dat, so if you go to my auth underscore provider.dat, you will see this sign out method I created here. Okay, so we are going to be implementing this stuff real quick, so let me just do a hot restart. All right, so let's wait for it. Okay, all right, so I'm testing this stuff with my physical device, so even if you're using an emulator, it's still going to work. So what I'm going to do now is to click on this button to continue with Google. So click on it. Let's see, you can see now the card is now displaying, and now I'm going to sign in. I have lots of accounts, so I'm going to sign in with this one. Okay, so because I want to get, okay, let me just sign in with this one. All right, because this one currently is not in my Firebase console. So if we go to my Firebase console now, we only have one email here, and this one I want to use is not there. So what I'll do, I'll just click on this button, and it's going to take us, and once everything is successful, we are boom, we're in the next page. So if you go to your code now, all right, so this stuff didn't print. Let's see, run. Okay, so we didn't print out, so I don't know. Display name should print, but we didn't see it. But with this now, you know that everything is working. If I do a hot restart, it's not going to take us back to the login page. It's just going to take us direct to the same page. All right, so let's see, because the user is not known. So if we go back to our Firebase console now, all right, so we refresh this, you're going to see the newly signed in user. So let's just wait for it, give it some time. All right, so now you see the newly signed in user, which I just signed in, and it's signed in on May 17, 2021, and you can see this is the date, 17/20/21. All right, so now we are good, and you can see the provider. This is Gmail, so Gmail is the provider. So guys, this is how you will do your authentication using Google. All right, you can see how easy it is. We didn't even write much code. We just went here, put your auth provider, and the rest of them we did a sign in with Google, and then from there we added this stuff. We enabled Google Auth here, and then just did the basic stuff. So right now we are going to work with Facebook. Okay, so this time around I'm going to show you how to authenticate a user using your Facebook, using his or her Facebook account. Okay, so now if you look here, I have this button, so I'm going to sign out now real quick. So if I sign out, to take me to this page. If I do a hot restart, because the user is null, we are still going to see this page. All right, okay, so because I've already signed in before, if I still click on this stage, to not show me that card box again, it will just take me direct. All right, so we are done with this one. Let's move on to authenticating with Facebook. So to do that Facebook auth, I still need to add a plugin, the dependency. So currently I don't have the dependency, so what I'm going to do, I'll go over to this page. All right, so just type Firebase. So this is where I normally get the dependency for authenticating with dark mode. So this is where you actually get the authentication, the plugins, and this is actually the up-to-date plugin. So we'll go to authentication and social auth. Okay, so my next video, I believe I'm going to do one for phone authentication, all right, to just show you how to use it. So this Facebook auth, we are going to copy this dependency. All right, so you copy that, you go back to your code, and we are going to add it here. Okay, and okay, so why this is adding, we are not just going to dive in and start coding the authentication flow. No, we need to do some changes. So you need go to your browser and then just type developer.facebook.com, and it should take you to this page. And sometimes it might ask you to log in. You can just log in with your Facebook credentials, and you should be in the same page with me. All right, so you can click on my apps. Once you sign in successfully or create an account, you click my apps. Okay, so it's going to take you to this page, Facebook for Developers page. So currently I have two apps running. So right now we are going to create another new app. So because I want to create a new app that will be connected to the app we are currently doing. So I'm going to create app and just select consumer. Okay, and next. All right, so this is the app name associated with your app ID. Okay, app display name, we can just say Flutter app. Okay, Flutter Auth. Okay, so that will be the name, and you create app. Okay, please complete the security check. Okay, no problem, that shouldn't be an issue. All right, so we are now a robot, and okay, so here we are now, and I'm going to click on the Facebook login. So just set up Facebook login, click on set up, and you select Android. So download Android SDK, this is not needed, it's optional, we don't need it for this. So click next, and you go down, it's going to ask you to include this Maven Central into your project. So we are going to add it inside, let's see, build a Gradle project inside build script repository. Alright, so let's add this real quick. You go to your app and go down, we click on Android, Maven this, okay, build.gradle. Okay, so we are going to add it here inside the repository. Right, yeah, we're going to add it here. Okay, I think that is fixed now. So let's go back to the documentation. So right now we are going to add this one also in your project open app. It's not really necessary, but it's still good to add it to be on the safer side. So we are going to go back, but this one we are adding it inside the app folder, inside the build.gradle file. So go down to where you have your dependency, and we are going to include it here. Okay. Alright, so the next step, let's see. Okay, so this one is optional, we can just skip it. And okay, now we are required to put in our package name, which is the app ID. So we are going to get this from still inside this build.gradle. You should see it here, application ID. So copy that, and we go back and put the stuff inside here. So now it's asking us for a default activity, so we just put anything. So I'll just use .main activity. Okay. Alright, so it's best you just do it the way I did mine. Just put your package name and then the main activity. Alright, so you click save, and do you want to use this package name? Then once that is done, we are going to click next to go back to this page. So now we are going to generate an encoded version of the Sharon key for Facebook. So to get that, you just copy this code, still go back to your project. So we're going to go to terminal. Alright, so we're going to paste it here to generate that, and click enter. So wait, it's still asking us for the password. We're going to pass in the same password we use for the Google Auth. So just use Android, and it's going to generate the key for us, which is this one. So we're going to copy this. Okay, I don't think I copied that correctly, so I'm going to copy this, and once you do, you go back to the documentation, and it's going to ask us to, if you're on Windows, use this method. If you're on Mac or Linux, use this method which I used. So we are going to go down to generate. If you want to generate a release key, alright, you can use this one. That is if you want to upload your iPhone to Play Store. Alright, so we're going to put in this key hashes here, and once you do, you save it, and feel free to click continue. And we have this, just save that, skip it, next. Okay, so now we are required to open your app resource values string.sml file, and we're going to add the following. Okay, so we're going to copy this. Okay, go to your project, and we are going to go over to Android. So this is Android, and this is the source. We have the main, we have the resource, and I think we should have value. So inside the value there is no string. That means we are going to create the string Okay, so we're going to create that. So what I'm going to do, right click here. So let's see the spelling of that to be sure of what we are doing. Is our strings.sml. Okay, so you click on this part and you will go back down to value resource file. Okay, and once you select that, you're going to enter a new file name. So we're going to enter strings.sml. Okay, click OK, and it should generate this for us. So now we have the string.sml. So now we are going to add this stuff we copied, which is this Facebook app ID inside here. Okay, so once you do that, feel free to close it. We are having red, but it doesn't matter, that is not our fault. Okay, so you can as well, let's go back again to see if there's any other thing we need to add. So we can add the internet permission. That is if you are deploying your app to Play Store or you want to release it for production, you just enable internet. But in this case, there's no need for us enabling internet because Flutter has two main dot that it has two activity on it has two manifest files. So the first one is this, and this is where you're required to put in your internet, which is this. So we can copy this, and this is where you are required to put your internet permission. All right, and for this debug is not needed because if you go to debug here, debug file, it has Android or manifest, and by default it has its own internet permission, so that is not required. Okay, but don't mistake the debug with this one. This one is where you do most of your stuffs. If you want to disable orientation, whatever you want to do, your app name, if you want to change it, this is where you change it. And you want to change your app icon, this is also where you change your app icon. So always be careful while doing all those stuffs. Okay, so now we are going to add the following metadata elements: an activity for Facebook and an activity and intent filter for Chrome custom tabs inside our application element. So I'm going to copy this and go to my project, and I'm going to click on, let's see where it is. Okay, Android manifest. So I'm going to close this one, we don't need it. Okay, so I'm going to open the Android. So they said inside application folder, and we have the application here. So I'm going to put it, okay, so they say inside application. Okay, inside our application element. So I'm going to put it here. Okay, don't just forget about all those red lines. Okay, so we close that and go back to the code again. So I'm going to click next, and it should take us to this page. We don't need all this configuration. Next, I think we are done, but let me just nest this stuff to the end. Okay, just nest this and just proceed. Okay, so now we are done. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Okay, so while in my dashboard, I don't really have anything to do for now. So to set up the Firebase, the Facebook Firebase authentication, we are going to go back to application. Okay, we're going to go back to the Flutter console. Okay, this is our dashboard. So I'm going to go back to where I went before, which is the sign-in method. So this time I'm going to enable Facebook authentication. You can see currently it's disabled. So you click here to enable it, and once you do, it will ask us for the app ID and also ask us for the app secret key. Okay, so you want to keep this stuff secret, but I'm just showing you guys because it's a tutorial I'm doing. Alright, so what I'm going to do to get that key, I'm going to go to Facebook login, right? Okay, let's see if this is where we're going to get it, and go to settings. Okay, so this is not the place. I'm going to go to settings from here and go to basic. Okay, and once you go to basic, you're going to see this page, app ID and the app secret. So by default is encrypted, is obscured. So to unscure it, we are going to click Facebook password, and once you get your Facebook password, you click on submit. Okay, so right now I have the app secret key which is showing, and I also have the app ID. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this app ID and go back to my Firebase console. and I'm going to save it. I'm going to add it here. So this is the app ID, and I'm going to go back here and add the app secret key. Okay, so you can reset this at any time in case you feel someone already have access to it. So I'm going to paste the app secret key here, and once you do, this button will be highlighted and you click on save. Alright, so Facebook has been enabled successfully. Alright, so now we can start implementing the Facebook flow. So let me go back here, okay? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this because this is the, okay, I have a reason for deleting this because the email is already associated with my Facebook. So now what I'm going to do, I'll go to let's see. Okay, I think I'm done with the Facebook part. Yeah, I'm done with the Facebook part. So what I'm going to do is just nothing. Go to your dashboard. I don't think there's any other thing I need to do here again. So it's all done in this part. Alright, so now let's go back to our project. So what I'm going to do, if your project is currently running, just kill it. Yeah, kill it. I'm going to kill it and then we run it again. Okay, so let's just run it, and I'm going to wait for it. If there's any successful log, if everything was correctly implemented, we are going to see our app on this physical device here, and else we're going to debug the issue. Okay friends, while trying to execute this application, I encountered some errors, and from here he's talking about a failure occurred while executing blah blah blah. Android resource link in feed. So, and that issue is coming from Android manifest. So it's trying to read the app name, which is in the part of string, and it cannot find it. So I can remember I created, okay, we did create a, let's go to our manifest file. Okay, let's go to our resource, our string. So here we created these resources and we only included the name of Facebook and also that of the Facebook login protocol. But here now you can see this Android resource. It is trying to like locate, okay, where we have the string and where is that? Resource string app name. Okay, so there is no part specifying that. Okay, app name. So we can see this stuff. It's trying to get the app name, which is string slash app name, and it cannot find it. So what we are going to do, we are going to create this part manually, okay, inside the string.xml file. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm just going to create a string, okay, with the name app name. Remember, it must be the same with this one, app underscore name, and this is just going to be, it's just going to take the name of your application. So in this case, we can just say you can say Flutter Auth or whatever you want to use, but we can just use Flutter Auth, or we can change the name to this. So let's see the name we are having here, which is Flutter FCM. Okay, so I'm going to replace it with this one. Alright, so now we can proceed to running our application again to see if it will generate any error. Okay, so we are also having another error here. So we are having this multi-desk error. So I think I fixed this in one of my videos previously, but we are still having another error, which is multi-verse. So the number of method reference in a .des file cannot exceed 64k. Okay, so the reason was because we added some more dependency and it has exceeded the bytes that this Gradle, or what is it called, can handle. Okay, so what we are going to do, we're going to go back to the, is it manifest? Okay, build, it should be manifest. Okay, build a Gradle file, not this one. We're going to go to the app on, so the app level. So you should click on main. Okay, you see this, and we're going to enable multi-desk. So right here we're going to say multi-desk enabled, and set it to true. So I believe this is correct. So let's see if you can just get this stuff from the internet real quick, and let's see. Okay, let's just say build a Gradle. Alright, so we're gonna get this enable multi-desk. So I think Stack Overflow is kind of gives me the best straightforward answer. So okay, so let's just go down to this. Alright, so now we have this multi-desk. Okay, so I believe I spelled it correctly, so we're gonna copy this. Okay, so we're gonna change this. Okay, it's still the same thing, similar, just to add the L here. Okay, so now we have it as multi-desk, but let me paste it to be sure, because I don't want to have another error. So it's the same thing. We can delete this, and then I'm going to add another one here for the dependency for multi-desk. So let me see if it was provided here. Okay, so it is. So we can copy the implementation. Alright, so now we can close this. We don't need it anymore. I've gotten what I want. So we're going to go back here and paste it here. Okay, so now we have the implementation for multi-desk. I believe this error should not be here anymore. So now let's run it one more time, and I'm going to bring up the app and just okay, so the application is running, is installing, and let's wait 3 2 1. All right, so we have everything working right. Alright, so now what we are going to do now is to write the code for authenticating the user using Facebook. Okay, so I'm going to close all, don't need these stuffs anymore. So just close this, close this, close this, leave the home, and we're going to close this as well. Remember, we already added this Flutter Facebook authentication. Okay, so right now we are going to implement the function for Facebook. Okay, so let me just zoom this a little bit. So we are going to create a function for Facebook, and so to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create another function again, the same way we did for the Google. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to create, it's still going to be a future. Okay, so we're going to say future, and we also want to return the user credential. Okay, and you're going to name this one sign in with Facebook. Okay, and it's also going to be an async. Okay, async, and now we are going to trigger the sign in flow, right? Just the same way we did for the Google Auth. So we're going to say sign in flow, and this is going to be the access token. And then here I'm going to name this one results. Okay, so use your weights, and then we can call Facebook Auth, I believe, Facebook Auth dot instance dot login. Okay, and you terminate that there. So the next thing we're going to do now is to create a credential from the access token. All right, so how am I going to do this? I'm going to create a Facebook Auth credential type, Facebook Auth credential, and I'm going to name this Facebook Auth credential, and then I'm going to initialize this here. So it's going to be Facebook Auth credential, yeah, Facebook Auth credential dot credential. Is it dot credential? Okay, maybe Facebook Auth provider, sorry, so my bad. Facebook Auth provider, remove that, dot credential, and then we're going to pass in the access token. So basically we're going to get it from this result, and it's going to be result dot access token, result dot token. Okay, all right, now we have that completed. So the next thing we're going to do now is, once the user is signed in, we are going to return the user credentials, the same thing we did for the Google as well. Okay, so I'm going to return the user credential. That way you can get any data of the user, and you can use it to do whatever you want to do. So in this case, I'm just going to return. You can see just 3 lines, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to return. It's going to be an await. So I'll say Firebase auth dot instance dot sign in with credential. Okay, then I'm going to pass in the Facebook auth credential here. Okay, and that is all. So you can see how short it is. It's not that difficult. It's except it's the setting up of all the stuff from the dashboard and the rest of them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to the application. Okay, so first thing first, I'm going to, okay, so I can zoom this now and show my app first. And okay, let me just show the application so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so right now we have this Facebook auth. So I'm going to go back to my login page, and right where we are going to continue with Facebook, inside this on tap, I'm going to call the auth class. So the auth class is actually coming from this. Remember, I showed you initially auth class. So I'm going to call the auth class and then call the sign in with Facebook function. So we say auth class dot sign in with Facebook, and then from here we use the then. So whenever this stuff is completed, we just get the value, and the value is going to be also an auth credential as well. So you want to make sure you put your, is it auth or user credential? Let's see. Okay, it's of type user credential, so I want to put the user credential. Okay, and then right here now we can print in the whatever value you want from the user, value dot credential dot user. Okay, you can get the display name, the user ID, the email, and the rest of them. Okay, so what I'm going to do, instead of writing all this stuff manually, I'm just going to copy this because I want to navigate to the home page whenever the user is successfully signed in. So I will copy that and then come over here, paste it here. Okay, so don't forget to format this properly. Refactor. Okay, so I'll just use the shortcut, which is Ctrl+Alt+L, and it's going to format it for us. So now make sure you run this. I'm going to do a hot restart, and let's see this stuff. Okay, so right now I will try to click on the continue with Facebook button to see if we can, okay, to see if everything is going to work. So continue with Facebook, and once you click on it, it's going to take us to this page, and it will ask us Flutter auth, which is the name of our application, is requesting access to your name and profile picture and email address. Alright, so we're just going to continue as Destiny, and once you continue, everything should be good. Alright, it should take us to the home page. We have some errors. We have some errors. Auth credential. Okay, the user account has been disabled by administrator. The user account has been disabled. Okay, so let's see where that issue is coming from. Disabled. Why? Okay, I was the one that disabled this, so I can enable account, but let me just delete it. Okay, alright, so the reason why it's showing that stuff was because I disabled the account. Okay, that's why I couldn't sign in, I couldn't create an account, so I disabled it. Okay, so you might ask, why is it showing like that previous one I deleted was for Gmail and this one is Facebook? So why is it conflicting? The reason is because the email address I use for my Gmail is still the same address that's associated to my Facebook. So whenever I'm signing in, it's still taking them as one user. Okay, so that's just it. So then we're going to go back to here to this app again, and let's try to trigger the authentication flow. So click on continue with Facebook. It will take us here. You previously logged into Facebook. You can see that this stuff is changing because I've deleted the account from the dashboard, from the Auth console. So continue and just wait. Everything is good. So we have successfully logged into our application using Facebook. So from here you can get the user data, you can get whatever you want to get from the user credential, from the value dots user whatever to get the values. Okay, so now if I do a hot restart, it's still going to start, it's still going to take us to this page instead of the login page, because this time the user authentication, the user is not null. All right, so now if we go back to our Firebase console and refresh this, and you should see the provider to be Facebook. Alright, so now you see the provider to be Facebook, and you can see the email address is still the same with the one I used initially. Alright, so you can see the date March 17. Alright guys, we are done. You're seeing how to integrate Facebook and Google authentication into your Flutter application. And in case you also want to integrate email and password, you do well to check the previous video, or I'm going to put the video in the link in the description below. Alright, so this is how it goes. We can continue with Google, and once I continue, you can see we're in the next page. And if I go here, and it's still going to take it as Facebook, I believe, but let's see if the email is going to show. It's still going to take it as Facebook. Okay, now it has changed to the Gmail. Alright, so if I go back now, I can still log in with my Facebook account and everything will be good. Alright guys, I'm going to see you in the next video where I'm going to be looking at phone authentication. Right, I'm going to show you how to authenticate users using their phone numbers. Alright, and also later on we are going to think about that. So guys, thank you so much, and do well to subscribe, share, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I'm going to see you in the next video.